What's up guys, welcome to day 19 of May 2020 daily LeetCode challenge. So today's question is online stock span. Let's look at the problem statement. Write a class StockSpanner which collects daily price quotes for some stock and returns the span of that stock's price for the current day. Span of that stock price for current day. The span of the stock price today is defined as the maximum number of consecutive days starting from today and going backwards for which the price of the stock was less than or equal to today's price. Right. For example, if price of the stock over next 7 days was 180, 60 and so on and so forth, then the stock span would be 1, 60, 70 would be 2 going starting from today and backwards. Alright, so consecutive days, maximum number of days for which the price was less than or equal to today's price. Okay, so that's why a 2 here for 70 and 60 is 1 because it's greater than 70, 75 is 4, 75 is 4 is because 1, 2, 3, 4, these 4 values are less than or equal to 75, and then 85 is 6 because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. Alright, so what is it saying in the example? So we're given next, and the values 180, 60, 70, 60, 85, and StockSpanner has initialized. Then next returns 1, next returns 80, next returns 2. Okay, note that for return 4 because the last 4 prices including 75 were right as we understood before. So basically what it's asking is you've got stocks and you have to return the span in number of days, and it will be an integer that you're returning. So if it's 100, the stock price is 100 and the span is 1 day only. Next is 80. 80 is less than 100, so hence the price span was 1 day only. Then 60, which is again less than 80, so the span is 1 day again. But when we come to 70 span is 2, as you can see here. That is because 70 that's 1 day span for its price, and the price which was less than 70, which is 60, so hence it's 2. And then we move next to 60. Then when we come to 75 the span is 4 because 75 itself first, then 60 which is less than 75, so we add 1 to the span. Now span becomes 2. Then we check for element before that, so which is 70 which is less than 75, so the span now becomes 3. Then 60, which is again less than or equal to 75, so the span is 4. And we check for 80, but here the span is not so it's greater than 75, hence we don't add this. So that's what the span is for this number, and similarly for 85. So note, calls to this would have the price between 1 to 10 raised to the power 5. There will be at most 10,000 calls to spanner. Alright, there will be at most 1500. Alright, the total limit, okay, the total time limit for the problem has been reduced by 75% for C++ and 50% for all other languages. Right, so we have to think of a solution. So one of the solutions would have been that you basically store each number in, say, an array, and each time you encounter a value, you check for all the elements less than it till the time you encounter an element which is greater than the given number. So for example, in 75, when you're given the value 75, your counter value would be 1. Then you check for the element preceding it, which is 60. So here the counter value would be 2. Then you again check for preceding value. So basically we're maintaining an array, and we keep doing this. We keep on increasing the counter till we encounter a value which is greater than the current price, and we return back. We store that, we store 75, and we simply return back the value. Now value of the counter. So now we're given that the time limit has been reduced for the problem. So one possible solution can be that we store the span for each element. And how do we go about doing that is, so given 100, we know the span is 1. We store the value 100 and its counter, which is 1, or the span, which is 1. Then for 80 the span is 1. Then for 60 again the span is 1, as it says here. Now when we encounter 70, what we can do is we'll again check for the element behind it, and it says the value is 1, and we increment it, but the value preceding that is 80. So we're going to store 70 and 20. Now we're going to check, and what we can do here now is, since we're only checking for values which are less than or equal to today's price, we could possibly delete 60 from the array and we store 70 only, because we already know that anything which would be greater than 75 would obviously be greater than 60 also, but anything which is less than 70 will not go to the index which is preceding 70. So henceforth we can delete 60 and we can simply store 20 here. So let's look at, if we do that, what happens next. So we go to 60, and once we go to 60 we check with 70 if that's the case. And what we can do here is, if it basically if you see here, less than or equal to today's price, so is 70 less than or equal to 60, which is not true. So the span for 60 would be 1 here. Now we go to 75 though. What happens here is that 75 will, obviously the counter at 75 will be 1, then it will check here for 60, and it'll basically add 1, which was its span, which is stored. Then its counter value or its span's value is 2. When it comes to 70, 75 obviously is greater than or equal to 70. So hence the counter value 2 for 60 and 70 is automatically added to the counter value, which was previously 2 here, and 2 plus 2 is 4. We didn't have to go back and check for an extra element 60. So that being that said, so the counter value is now 5. The counter value is now 4 for 75. So 1 plus 1 plus 2, which is 4. So we store 4 as it's shown here, and we output 4. Now when we look at 85 though, 85 is greater than equal to 75, and 75 has, as we've already seen, is greater than all these elements up to here. So 85 is basically 1, and essentially once we did this, we stored the value of 4 in 75. We've deleted all these elements which were preceding 75, because we already know that we don't care about these elements if anything is less than 75. So the value of 75 is 4 here. Now we encounter 85 when we move to the next element. So once we're inserting 85, we will check for its span, and the span of 85 would be 1 here. Then we check the preceding element, its value is 4, so 1 plus 4 is 5, and now we don't have to check through any of these because we are only left with 80 in this array, which is greater than 85. Hence what we can do is we will store this value we'll add the value of span for 80, which was 1, if you recall from the previous calculation that we did. So the value of 85 now is 6. Now we check for 100, which is not it does not satisfy this given condition here that today's price is greater than equal to whatever was in the previous days. So 85, the span is 6 as we have now calculated, and now basically we can get rid of all of these elements here. So anything which would be greater than now 105 would delete 185 if it was the case in here, but for now we're only given values till 85. So let's see how we can essentially implement this. So there you could essentially go about maintaining an array is one way. You could do it via a stack, which would obviously be similar to an arrays implementation, but let me just go through how we could simply do this with a linked list. So linked list, and what we were as we discussed before, we're interested in the span value and we're interested in the value that was inserted for today's price. So we can have a pair which basically stores a key and value. So the key would be the price and the value would be its span. So let's quickly code this pair integer, and this we can call prices spans, maybe, yeah. So prices spans equal to new linked list. Now when we're doing the insertion, so we've initialized prices and spans, and now we need to do the check for the span for given day. So let's hold a span, or maybe a current span is 1. So the value itself that's coming through this price will have a span of 1, which we know that the default span would be 1 because that's today's price. So one day span will surely exist. Next, what we will do is check for if our prices span is empty. It's not empty. We need to make sure that this is not empty when we're doing the comparison. Sorry. And next thing would be prices span dot, we can get the last element. So whatever the last element is in prices span, since we have not inserted the price yet, so what we simply do is we get the last element and we check if its price is less than currently incoming price that we have to store. So let's do a get key. So key, if you can recall, we're storing key as price and span as value. So we will do the next steps till this value is less than equal to price. So now we simply just have to do a since we did a plus, if you can recall from here, we just simply need to add whatever the previous element span was. So span would be current span. Oh, it's not count, it's called current span. and this value would be prices spans. It's prices and spans dot get last dot get value. So what this will do is it will add the last day span to the current span. And now if you recall, we don't really care about the value which was less than today's value, and so we can remove it by simply calling prices spans dot remove last. Okay, so that gets rid of the element. So what basically we're doing in this loop is we're checking if prices and spans is not empty, and if it's not empty, we check the very last value in the linked list, the one that was inserted last, and we check if its value is less than or equal to the incoming price. We add its span and we remove it because we don't care about it anymore, and we keep doing this till the value of the previous key, the consecutive previous keys are less than price. So once we're done, we simply just need to add we would simply need to add the prices with the current calculation that we've done to prices spans. So how do we do that? By simply new pair, and we store the price that was incoming, and the second thing that we care about is the current span, and lastly we return current span. Cool. So that's how short the code actually is for this problem. Let's run it to see if there are any errors. Awesome, and we're getting the expected answer. Right, so let's submit it and see if it's accepted. Awesome, and it's accepted. Cool. So thank you guys for watching this video. I would suggest you give it a thumbs up, since I did a really short code based video, and do hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and hit the bell icon. You will get all the updates for all the videos that I'll be posting for the May challenge, and that will keep you updated on all the videos that I'm doing. I am at least producing one video a day. This will keep you subscribed to the channel and all the latest updates. Do post your comments in the comment section below. I would be really interested in knowing if you've got any other implementations for the problem, or if you've got any feedback or suggestions. Thanks again.